Donald Trump went to a Georgia city yesterday, I believe it was, Valdosta, Georgia, and this is, a place just devastated by a hurricane. And typically politicians wait a little time before they show up. Now, keep in mind, when Trump was president, a hurricane hit North Carolina. Roy Cooper asked for disaster funds. Donald Trump turned him down because he was a Democrat. When the hurricane hit Puerto Rico, and they were desperate for funds, Donald Trump turned down much of the funding or postponed it. And so he goes to this, to Georgia, and first of all, the local people were very upset that he was there because he was pulling away the police. This was Rex Chapman, who is a social media influencer, former NBA basketball player. He says, "How selfish do you have to be to use up first responders' resources for a photo op while people are hurting?" And the Lincoln Project said authorities there will have to clear roads for his photo ops instead of doing essential service work for residents and businesses. This is all Trump knows, using the tragedy of others to prop himself up. And what does he do? He gets up there and he says, Brian Kemp is trying to get help from Joe Biden, but Joe Biden won't take his calls, which is a complete lie, because just hours earlier, Brian Kemp had, told reporters, Joe Biden called me and said, whatever you need, just give me a shout. Here's my number. It's just wild. I mean, it's just Scott MacFarlane for CBS News. He said, heavy police presence and wide perimeter here in Valdosta, Georgia, where Trump is planning a campaign stop in front of this damage. Power has been out for days in this community. One restaurant owner told me they're ambivalent about dignitary visits right now. The traffic lights were out, the trees were down, the roofs were shredded, restaurants were serving food on the streets. And Donald Trump goes down there and lies about Joe Biden. And then the other thing that was just shocking to me, if you've any kind of a student of German history at all, and I lived in Germany for a little over a year, and you can't do that and not familiarize yourself with German history. And I believe it was in 1938, Kristallnacht. I'd have to go back and look. It might have been much earlier. In fact, it was probably much earlier than that. But anyhow, this was the night where the Nazis just rampaged, shattered store window, attacked Jewish-owned businesses and Jewish-owned stores. For some time prior to that, Jewish-owned businesses had to basically, identify themselves, put a sign out identifying themselves as a Jewish-owned business. And so Kristallnacht, it's called Kristall because of all the broken glass. And they murdered a bunch of people. I mean, they literally did. Or Donald Trump is literally, in his speech in Erie, Pennsylvania on Sunday, he literally suggested that we should have Kristallnacht, which is kind of stage 2 of the Nazi takeover. He said, you see these guys walking out with air conditioners and refrigerators on their back, the craziest thing, and the police aren't allowed to do the job. They're not allowed to do it because the liberal left won't let them do it. The liberal left wants to destroy them. They want to destroy our country. If you had one day, like one real rough, nasty day, if you had one really violent day, one rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it'll end immediately. Right. Let's just kill some people. And half of America is going to vote for this guy? What kind of country do we live in? I get it that the white supremacy is the thing. I get it that racism is the thing. Trump, all the way back to, when he was in his 20s, refusing to rent his dad's buildings to black people, going after the Central Park Five, talking about S-hole countries, talking about, calling black people low IQ. I get it. He has been a racist bullhorn. And there's, a lot of racists in this country, a lot of white racists. I mean, there's racists of all races, but in particular, this is what we're talking about here. But wow, how does this guy even get to be